Welcome, welcome, welcome. Here we are then, as they say in all good race meetings, and they're off. The season has just begun, and Chris and I are going to have a look at the results for last week. As you probably all know, my name is Kevin Lucy from the Glasgow Rushmores. And Chris, I'm sure you'd like to say hi to all your fans and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am Chris Weeks, and I am the coach of the Santa Rosa Chargers.
Right, Chris. Well, shall we make a start then? Do you want to kick us off for the PFC? You have a look at the PFC, I'll have a look at the LFC.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, Kev. Right, well, it was a very, very interesting week. And there were a lot of close games. I mean, out of, 16 games, I think 11 games were decided by one score or less.
Well,
that's quite incredible, really.
Yeah, it is.
A couple of blowouts, but for the most part, really close games are very interesting games. So I'll kick off. I'll start off with the Bombers against the Generals. So that's Jeff's team against Eban's team. Now, to say it was one-sided is an understatement. It was an absolute massacre. It was 70-0 to the Generals, and Jeff's team had 4 yards of offense.
Oh my gosh.
35 yards of penalties. And it was just, I looked at it. Hooker had 200 yards, 5 touchdowns. Kirby had 120 yards, 1 touchdown. But the truth of this is Jeff didn't turn up at all, right? He didn't seem to show much interest whatsoever, whether or not he just knew it was a foregone conclusion. But his defense, he had 1-3-4 set up for defense, his default defense, and he had a pistol offense. His defense played virtually nothing but zone against the Generals running team. So it was exactly what you'd expect. You know, it was all over at the end of the first quarter. It was 35-0. Yeah. So I don't know whether or not Jeff just conceded that he wasn't going to win it. He just didn't have any interest. I don't know. So we'll gloss over that one.
Yeah.
I hope it was a one-off, I must say, because I've got the Generals next week. Yeah. So I'm hoping that it was more on Jeff than it was Eban's great team. We'll see. Right then. So moving on. The Packers, so Tom Watt's Packers and Ambrose's Warriors, the Yorkshire Warriors, was again a very, very close game, a very, very good game that could have gone either way. In the end, it was Tom's Packers that won out 33-27. And the difference in the game was the Packers running back Lamar. That was the difference, because in every other sense, they were fairly well matched. But Lamar went for over 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And that's what separated them. But I mean, the Packers are a great team, and Ambrose did extremely well to hold it that close. You know, the Packers are looking very, very strong again. Yeah, but like I say, all credit to Ambrose's team. You know, to keep it within 6 points. Very, very good. Moving on, the Titans and the Eagles. So James' Titans and Andy's Eagles. Now this was again a very, very close game. 20 points to the Titans, 27 to the Eagles. And I mean, it could have gone either way all through the game. The Eagles were slightly more dominant, but the thing that swung it was the interceptions. There were 9 interceptions in this game, and 6 of them were by the Titans. Yeah, and the Titans also lost 2 fumbles. So 8 turnovers. Remarkable, really, that the game was that close, given there were 8 turnovers by the Titans. I mean, the Eagles had a couple of turnovers as well, but you know, 8 turnovers. They were lucky to stay in it at all. But you know, again, a great result, really, going away to the Eagles, yeah, and only losing by 7 with that many turnovers. That's pretty impressive in itself. Moving on, we'll talk about my Chargers and Maroons. Yeah, Scott's Maroons.
Yes.
And basically, I robbed it. I hold my hands up. Yeah, I stole the game. I didn't deserve it because the Maroons had to settle for a lot of field goals. Yeah, I had virtually no answers and no defense but for some reason they stood firm in the red zone, and that was how I won the game. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, well, that's what you want, isn't it? Your defence standing firm.
Well, it is. I kind of felt sorry for Scott though, because I thought, well, you know, I just stole it really. If he'd had one more touchdown, you know, but ironically, I didn't expect to win at all. I looked at my schedule, yeah, and if you look at my key game, the clues there, I was looking for first win status.
Yeah, we know you were trying to sneak in that first win, so Scott's bugging it up for you.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So moving on from there, right now, next interesting game, very interesting game, the Rivets and the Rough Riders. Now, the Rivets won out 31-14 in this game, but it was 17-14 at the half. And again, this game was decided in the second half by the turnovers. Now, the Rough Riders had 4 turnovers, and that was the big difference. You know, I mean, and I don't know whether the Rivets are starting to slip, yeah, or whether Pete's Rough Riders are starting to elevate, because he started to do quite well at the end of last season, and he's obviously on the rise. And of course, the Rivets are probably just now on the decline. Now, how far that decline will go, we'll see in the coming weeks. But yeah, very interesting game. So we shall see. Right then, next game, the Stormers, Mark Rousel's team against the Devils, yeah, Zane's team. Now that finished 17-14 to the Stormers. But the Stormers absolutely dominated possession. Having said that, going into the fourth quarter, Zane was still in it. It was 14 apiece going into the fourth quarter. Yeah, but the Stormers took the lead, but then they finished the game off. They had an 8-minute drive at the end of the game. Yeah, and basically Zane's team didn't get back into it, didn't get the opportunity. Yeah, and as I say, because the Stormers dominated so much of the possession, it was actually a very good result for Zane's Devils, yeah, on the grounds that they should have lost by a lot more. Yeah, but again, interesting to see how the Stormers fare, because you know they had a lot of possession, didn't score that many points, but you know, a win's a win. That's it. Right. I'll come back to one game. I'll come back to the Surfers and the Rapiers. I'm going to go now with the Huskies against the Bulldogs. So it was Don Kane's Huskies against Miranda's Bulldogs. Now, the Huskies in the end won out 7-6, but the Bulldogs led, yeah, virtually through the whole game with 2 field goals. Now, right into the fourth quarter. And in the 45th minute, Miranda's team missed a field goal because they would have gone up 9-zip. Yeah. And that would have put the game away. But the Huskies weren't finished, and they eventually drove down the field and scored a touchdown in the 54th minute. So they ran out the winners, and Miranda must feel quite hard done by with that, I would have thought, because, you know, 6-0 for that long, and then to miss what would have been the winning field goal, and then to end up losing in the 54th minute. You know, personally, I'd have kicked my laptop. You know, hey ho, it is what it is. Anyway, so finally, the Surfers and the Rapiers. Gary Stevens rebuilding Surfers against Phil's Rapiers. Now, bearing in mind that the Rapiers are a very, very good team. And this was, for me, the surprise of the week. The Surfers won out 31-27, having trailed by 27-17 going into the fourth. And I got to be honest, because of Gary's supposed rebuild, he's obviously getting there much quicker than we ever dreamed, because his quarterback Ethel outshone Pogue He threw for 470 yards with an 80% completion rate. Yeah. And again, I would imagine that Phil felt a little hard done by, because the Rapiers, running back Galloway, he had a great day as well. He had 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. But the surprise, I think, for the Surfers was the play of his 2 receivers, Ford and Jagris, who had combined 330 yards. But yeah, that was some game. That was a great comeback. That was 14 points in the 4th quarter from the Surfers, away at the Rapiers. So I would imagine that Gary was feeling very, very pleased when the results came out.
Actually would be.
And Phil would feel a little bit aggrieved. But yeah, great game. So that is the end of the PFC.
All right, okay. Well, let's have a look at the LFC then. I'm going to start just in the order that they're in on the board, as it were. So if I start with my own Rushmores against the Sun Devils, we dashed out to a sort of 20-zip lead at half time. And I thought to myself, oh, good, that's 1 game under the belt. We're home and dry. But oh no, Sam had other ideas. So Sam brought it back to 2014. Now, bear in mind last season's disasters where I lost 3 games, 4 games by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, or whatever. I said to myself, oh my God, here we go again. Luckily, though, on the 58th minute, we managed to kick a field goal. And my heart beat a little bit easier, knowing that they needed 2 scores. Basically, it ended up, as I say, 23-14. Main reason for that was a good, solid performance from my pass rushing. My defensive line was excellent. They sacked Butler, his quarterback, 9 separate times. And Wise did 5 of those and quite rightly received the MVP. So that was basically a nice start to the season for me. The next game, Sharks against the Knights. Okay, now we did say in our preseason analysis that the Sharks had made an awful lot of changes to their squad. And it showed, because I think few of us predicted this result, but the end result was Sharks 7 and Knights 10. Sharks went into a 7-0 lead, so we all thought, oh, here we go, normal services resumed. And then the Knights brought it back to 10-7 at half time, and that actually remained the final score. Now, this was a bit of a strange game because the game was played around the halfway line. Nobody got much further than the halfway line. There were 34 first downs. So people were converting into first downs. But if I tell you there were only 2 field goal attempts from both teams combined, you'll see that nobody got within range of the end zone. It was a bit messy in terms of turnovers. There were 10 turnovers altogether from both teams, so it got a bit messy. Congrats, Brian. A good first win. And Ben plays the Irish next week. So he's going to need a reaction from his players because, as you know yourself, go 0-2 at the start of the season. It's not that good. Unfortunately for Ben, he's lost 2 of his cornerbacks, not 1, but 2 of them to injuries. So he's got to overcome that. And Brian came out with an F injury as well. So he's not exactly, out of the woods, as it were. And it's his wide receiver, Curtis. So we'll have to see how they cope with that. Okay, what about this game? Next game then. This is some defensive masterclass. The 66ers against the Statesmen. Okay, 66ers 9, Statesmen 3. Every single point, as you can tell, was a field goal. Okay, and between the 2 sides, they managed a total of 295 yards. That's between the 2 of them. So you could say that the defenses were on top. The stats were very even, although Craig's 66ers had the ball much longer, and they got 11 first downs in comparison to Lee's 6 first downs. This game, in the end, because of the defenses, came down to the kicking game, really. And basically what happened is Posts, the kicker for the 66ers, won this game 3 converted out of 5, as opposed to Exigent from the Statesman, who only got 1 out of 4. So it really was such a tight game. Anyone looking at this game can say it's going to be absolutely murder to score points against either of these two teams, because just the way they defend. So next week, the Statesmen play the Phoenix, and 66ers play the Hornets. Ouch. So watch this space. Those two could be very, very interesting games. Next one on my list, the Irish against the Weasels. Ben's Weasels really pick up from where they left off last season with a 10-17 win. And after 1 minute, the Irish took the lead with a pick 6, interception returned, only the Weasels to come straight back with a touchdown. So the score was 7-7 after 4 minutes. Okay, so that neither team wasted any time. Then, mind you, the game started to calm down a little bit, with the ball going backwards and forwards. Ray's rushing offense was really unable to get going at all in the game. When I say couldn't get going, they were -9 yards for 21 carries. So talk about getting stuffed out. The Weasels certainly did their work there. Next week is the Weasels versus the Knights, and the Irish take on the Sharks. So that should be interesting. Next game is probably the only real one-way traffic in the LFC. Massive 40, the Shadows 16. Let's say it was pretty much one-way traffic. Martin's Massive were 33-7 up at halftime, and that was basically game over. Next week, the Massive take on the Buccaneers, and the Shadows take on the Rhinos. So again, we'll see what happens there. Oh my God, this next game. Patriots against the Fire. Okay. Patrick, shame on you, sir. You bowed out with a loss. Because but never mind, Colton. Welcome to the game. The only way is up. So Patrick's left you sort of a nice team there, believe it or not. Okay, so what happened? Well, basically 5 interceptions against the Fire didn't really do much to help them. Steve's aerial wide receivers, Drift and Armstrong, combined yet again with the MVP Oakwell to put up 469 yards in the air. Basically, the Patriots are going to pass every down, just about. They had 45 attempted passes against 17 carries. So it's going airborne. And despite that, he only had a 24% completion on his passes, yet he still managed to knock up 469 yards.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so basically, I think Steve's attitude is sod it, it's going in the air. If it's incomplete, we'll try another one. If that's incomplete, we'll try another one. Because if you look at his average gain per completion, it's astronomical. And when you look at it, it's like incomplete, 46 yards, incomplete, 35 yards. And it's just unbelievable. I actually happen to play the Patriots next, which I'm really looking forward to, except that Patrick's done me a massive favor because he's basically given Steve the worst injury list out of the whole of the Big Sky. This was a brutal game. Steve has picked up 16 levels of injury. So it'll be interesting to see how the poor guy recovers from that, because some of them are, he's got, I think, 5 or 6 players who could well be out altogether. So we'll see what his reserve squad is. So final score, Patriots 26, Fire 25. So it went all the way, as it were. Next game, the Buccaneers against the Rhinos. Bit of a surprise, this one, for me anyway. And talk about clinical. My gosh, Richard had 7 drives in the first half, and he scored touchdowns from 6 of them. So you try sorting that one out. 41-6 at half time. And then basically the game was all over. I mean, ironically, the stats were pretty even. There were 13 first downs for the Buccaneers to 14 from the Rhinos. So it wasn't that, but it was like just the clinical finishing, as it were. Things improved for Adrian when they changed quarterbacks with Diggle, I think it is, looking pretty sharp when he came on. Unfortunately, though, it was a case of too little, too late, really, because the game was all done. Next week, the Bucs are at the Massive, and the Rhinos are at home to the Shadows. So we'll look at that one. And the final game in the LFC to look at was the Hornets against the Phoenix. Okay. Now, as we probably all know by now, the Hornets were 31. The Phoenix picked them at 33. So you've got to ask the question, was this down to low morale, having been conference winner? Or was this down to home field advantage? Or was this down to a fantastic Phoenix effort? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes, basically. I think all three of them had an influence on it. In the game, the Hornets came out throwing, as we might have guessed that they would do. The Hornets always come out throwing. They had 14 rushes to 30 passes. So they're always going to throw. And not only that, but they had 80% completion rate. So really, it's a case of somehow Ian's defense kept them down to only 298 yards, which if you play the Hornets, you'll know that is unusual to manage to keep them down to that, especially when they've got that completion rate. And the Phoenix, okay, they came out rushing, as we knew they would. Again, the Phoenix had 65 carries to 12 passes. That wouldn't really surprise anybody. 22 rushing first downs. They kept the ball quite a long time. And the Hornets simply could not shut down their rushing defense. Especially the MVP for the game, the running back Verdell, who rushed for 375 yards of the 446 yards total rushing. So basically, one team was throwing, one team was rushing. And the game was still exceptionally close, though. It wasn't a runaway by any stage. So, I mean, 33-31 could have gone either way. There was a field goal that could have sealed it towards the last 2 or 3 minutes. So basically, you cannot write off either of these teams. And if you do so, you do so at your peril, basically. Next week, wait for this one. The Hornets are playing the 66ers, and they're at the 66ers. And the Phoenix are at the Statesmen. So those could be very, very interesting. So that basically wraps up all the results for week one with a quick review of most of the games there. So what struck you this week, Chris, about the games? I mean, there were a few surprises, I thought.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, I think, how close the majority of the games were. That was shocking in itself because, you know, the NFL like to talk about parity. Well, that is parity when you've got that many games that are that close, and even the teams that dominated, they still ran them close. So that surprised me. The surprise of the week for me was the Surfers at the Rapiers.
Yeah,
because I was convinced, and I think we all were, that Gary was in rebuild. Well, his rebuild must be going very, very well if you can go to the Rapiers with what's effectively a rookie or, you know, age 2, age 3 team. I know he's picked up a couple of players, but that really shocked me. You know, for him to win at the Rapiers, that was the one that really made me sort of, when I looked at the results, I was kind of, wow, wasn't expecting that one. So that was it. The other thing that surprised me was, going off piste a little bit, was Miranda's Bulldogs. In the second round, at the very top of the second round, they took a defensive end, Pennington. And you looked at it and you thought, that's a bit of a reach, that. He's a bit low level, and he was 60 strength, but I thought, well, I almost thought it might have been an auto pick where she's put down defensive end and it was and Pennington was picked. Yeah.
Oh no, they
And
were
in
on
the game,
they were on Zoom. Yeah,
he had 4 sacks.
yeah,
For a 60 strength defensive end, he had 4 sacks. So what do I know?
exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Mm.
So our predictions, we both said the teams that we predicted in the LFC. I have to remind us of this. Both lost this week.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
sticking with the Statesman?
Well, I was shocked. If I'm, for Lee's team to be held so little offense. I mean, I know his defense played brilliantly, but
Yeah.
I just, again, that was a shock result. But yeah, I'm still, because he comes back, Lee. You know, he comes back even more determined than he was before. So yeah, I'm sticking with the Statesman.
Okay.
It's
You're on camera.
Listen, the fat lady hasn't sung yet, but all right.
It's not even warbling. Okay, well, we better wrap it up for there. Obviously, with the new timings for the games, we're not sure when you'll get to see this, guys, but we'll try and get it out the day before or the evening before the bar goes down, so we have something to watch while the bar is still down. And I'm not talking about the drinking bar. So, Chris, thanks very much for your help this week, sir, as usual, and we shall see everyone next time.
Excellent.
Bye.
Take care. See you
Good
soon.
night.